Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Leaders, audience, thank you again for joining me. Today, I have Mr. Mike Ambassador Bruny on. I'm not too sure if you all had an opportunity to see him yet, but I mean, as you can see, I am extremely underdressed today. Mr. Bruny right now is taking the cake for dapperness. So I'm super excited to, of course, get into the interview today with Mike. And like I always do, let me go on ahead and jump into his quick bio. So today we have Mike Ambassador Bruny on the show, and he is on a mission to help young professionals of color have more impact at work. He is the founder of the No More Reasonable Doubt movement and podcast. So, Mike, I've given the leaders out there a quick snapshot, but in the next few minutes, in its purest form, how would you describe yourself and what you do?
Well, the way I would describe myself in its purest form is I'm just a regular guy who likes to take action on things that I care about. If I want to see something change, I try my best to do something about it and to help people who want to do the same. As far as what do I do in its purest forms is really I am just looking for opportunities to create programs that are going to help move people forward and end what I call unnecessary suffering.
That's unnecessary suffering. Okay, so let's touch on that real quick.
Yes.
Now, whenever you say unnecessary suffering, what do you mean?
I basically mean if I or someone in my circle has gone through something, there's no reason that anyone else should be sitting there wallowing in how do I do it? To me, that's unnecessary suffering. If you break your leg, I can't help you. You're going to suffer a little bit.
A little bit, yeah.
But if you need a connection to get something going, there's certain things I just don't think people need to just sit in. And some of that is mindset as well. So I want to be able to provide people with opportunities to look at things. And what I like to say in everything I create is the thought of, oh, snap, I didn't know that was possible. Or, oh, snap, I didn't know that was possible for someone who looks like me. That's the unnecessary suffering for me.
Okay, so if we're talking about unnecessary suffering, we're now speaking about not having individuals fall into the pitfalls or the potholes that someone before them might have fell into.
Yes.
Is there any type of mentorship program that you have or that you're doing right now so that individuals have an opportunity to be exposed to other individuals who have already fallen in those pitfalls so that they don't?
Right now, and it's interesting because now when I think about pitfalls, there's two pieces to that. But right now, what I'm working on is something called No More Reasonable Doubt, as you mentioned. It's a podcast, it's a movement, but right now the focus really is on the podcast. I interview professionals of color and I get their insights and I get, hey, who are you? What did you do? How'd you get where you're going? And provide that back to young professionals of color who may be at the beginning of their career or may just, they may still be in college and just about to start their career. And they're thinking about what direction do I go? So that's one way. I am a certified life coach, so there's coaching opportunities we can talk about, but the podcast is the main focus right now. What I was talking about twofolds is because one of the things that I don't necessarily want to do is just focus on hey, I got a challenge. I want someone to go like I have a current problem, but I want someone to be in a position where I got an idea and I don't know where to take it. So it's not just negative, if you will, but also the thought of, I got this idea, but the people who are around me, they're not necessarily going to know what to do with this idea. I want No More Reasonable Doubt to be a space where they can go and go, hey, I'm thinking about this, and they can be encouraged and they can be pointed in the right direction and be told, give it a try, test it, see what happens, instead of, are you crazy? People like us don't do that.
And I'm so happy that there's going to be an outlet for young men of color to reach out and to even have this mentorship, right? I think a lot of times people feel as though a mentor needs to be someone who either you physically know or you're physically around. And that's just not the case, right? I've got several mentors and some of them don't even know they're my mentors. You know what I mean? Like Les Brown for one. Bishop T.D. Jakes as another, right? These are gentlemen who have impacted my life. Joel Osteen, like these people don't even know that they are my mentors, right? Listening to them right? Hearing the way that they speak, watching them on TV, because me as a speaker, having an opportunity now to see the way that they speak, right? And the way that they're able to articulate the story, the way that they're able to now kind of take you on the dips, right? And then bring you back up. You now have an opportunity to tap into so many different mentors. And I just want to make sure that I dispel that myth that a mentor has to be someone that you know and is physically around you. So I'm so happy that you're starting this No Reasonable Doubt movement and podcast. And when I hear No Reasonable Doubt, my mind immediately goes to Jay-Z. Was that on purpose?
It is. It is. I have a long history of working with hip hop lyrics. That's a whole nother movement that I've started and still exists in hip hop affirmations. And just a quick point of correction, if you will, it's not just for men of color. So I want women to feel slighted.
Thank you so much for correcting me there. Right. So it is people of color, right?
Yes.
Understood. So when it comes to this movement, what really inspired you to start this movement, right? Can you pinpoint it to an event or maybe even a series of events that inspired you to start your business?
There are a couple of things here because it's probably more of a series of events. One is that the place where I was working at Intel, they shut down. So I used to work for them. I no longer work for them. And as I'm looking for the next thing to do, because I consider myself a side hustler, still looking for full-time as well, there was something about how can I take all this stuff that I've learned and give it to people who look like me? I felt very fortunate in a number of different cases, not just in working at Intel, but the coaching circles, the social media circles, just the different opportunities I've had or created for myself. And I'm thinking, there's a lot of people who look like me who just don't get the opportunity or just wouldn't think about taking this risk to talk to someone who is a quote unquote A-lister and say, how can I distill this and give it back? That's kind of what inspired it. So I just went ahead and I started doing research on what do people want, and it kind of morphed based on different things. And I didn't have the exact words, but I just moved forward. We're doing a podcast and we're going to go from there. And then later on, the words came to me, and the words came to me through a LL Cool J lyric, which was basically, when I'm alone in my room, sometimes I stare at the wall, and in the back of my mind, I hear my conscience call. And that was a big part of it, is not how you show up when everyone's watching, but what happens when you're alone in your room and then your conscience calls. I don't care how you look in public, but I want to know what's the conversation you're having with yourself. That's what inspired is how do I get people to take those conversations and do something about it, deal with what's really going on, and move forward with what you really envision.
So when you're talking about being alone in your room and you hear your conscience call, in fact, let me ask you a more personal question. If I am alone in my room and I hear my conscience call, and my conscience is telling me all of the negative things, right? All of these things that I can't do, all of the issues that I might face if I were to do this, right? All of the things that could go wrong if I started to do this or I began to do this. What do you say to me?
I tell you, find someone who has done something similar to it. Find someone, in this case, I try and find someone in your circle who's that positive person that you can talk to. What I would tell you, and I'm trying not to use there's a bias that I have because I've been at this for a while, and I'm trying not to just put it on, you should do this, because that answer is coming from a place of knowing and failing and succeeding and knowing. But one of the things that I've learned to do is say thoughts, because things are going to come to you. Say thoughts. That's a thought. It's just a thought. That's it. Keep going where you're going. Thoughts. Okay, put it in the thought bucket. Keep going. The other thing is asking yourself, is it true? Is it true? And then the third is write it down, because then you kind of get it out of your head and get it out of repeat. You get it. Here it is in front of me. And is this thing really going to happen? How can I manage this risk, if you will? So those are a couple of steps that I would say.
So The first is thoughts.
Yeah.
And I love that you said thoughts, because that is simply what they are, thoughts. I feel as though a lot of times, whenever we're thinking, it's very easy to immediately put that thought into a fact bucket, right? Put that thought into a fact bucket to where now that thought has now grown and escalated into something so much more than what it originally was when we thought about it, right? Because all it was simply a thought.
Right.
Is it true? Now, whenever we think about is it true, what if we don't have all of the information? What do we do then? Right? If we get down to step two, and step two is it true? If we don't have all of the information, where do we go?
It's going to be depending on whatever what your personal situation is. In general, we don't have all the information. There's everything from Google. There is kind of going back to the successful friend. Who's that person that you can kind of talk to? But look for examples of something positive. That's what I say is look for an example of something positive that you can hang your hat on. I love the idea of I don't use mentorship as much. I use advisor, but finding someone who has knowledge in this particular lane that you're struggling with, and have a conversation with them. It's going to take some vulnerability, but that's part of the game.
Yeah. And the last point that you had was write it down. Why is writing it down so important?
Part of it I can't explain, but there's this release. It's not keep you just repeating this stuff. It's a question of, well, do you want to do something about this? Yes or no? Get it out of your head. There it is. It lives right there. You can go and revisit it anytime you'd like, but don't just keep playing it over and over without being able to take steps. When it's on paper, now you can, as I like to do, is mind map. What can I do? What's next? Who needs to get involved? Who has done this before? You don't necessarily need to know them, but who has done something similar to this before? Who could I go to? Is it a professor? Is it a local leader? But who could you talk to? You actually have it in front of you, and you're trying to take steps to work on it. But it starts by getting it out of your head. I don't care how good you are. Some people, oh no, I got it. It's in my head. That's right. It's taking up space. Let it out.
There we go. So I don't want to put any words in your mouth. Mind map. Help me to understand that a little bit more.
Well,
what do you mean by mind map?
We're going to have listeners, and we're going to have people who are going to be watching this, because I would say if you go behind you on your whiteboard there, and you have where it says everybody is a genius. And if you circle the word genius, for example, don't go erasing that.
Okay. Boom.
Okay. And then now let's say you want to think through the word genius, and then you draw a line from that circle, like spider legs, and then you write the word people. You draw another spider leg, and then you write ideas.
Okay.
It's just a place where you can flow, and it's not linear. So from people, you can start another spider leg off of people to label people who are geniuses that you think, oh, Einstein, So it allows you to release things. That's what a mind map looks like. So people who are watching it, you'll be able to see. One of the ways I found easy to explain it is talking about spider legs.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit different than a bulleted list where it's very linear.
Understood. Okay, so that is extremely helpful, right? And I'm happy that, one, we had an opportunity to touch on it, and two, you decided to use this whiteboard right behind you to give people a visual representation of what you mean by mind mapping. So why is mind mapping so important? Because we've now taken and moved from thoughts, is it fact, to writing things down. And then we've taken writing things down a bit further and said mind mapping. So what's the importance behind mind mapping?
Mind mapping, and it's all part of the writing down, I do think in lyrics. So it makes me think about a lyric by Lupe Fiasco, which goes, "You'll never be a factor if you're not an actor." And that is taking steps. And mind map, what it does is allows you to take steps. You can plan this out, and you can do the same thing with the same word every day if you want, but it allows you to re-engage with it. So if you feel stuck with something, here's a way to think it through. This is just a process of thinking it through. And those things that you come out with, you can actually have one spider leg, one line that says, actions I will take. And then you start to to put it there, but it's out of your head. It's out of your head. It's in the universe, and it's now something you can work with.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I'm loving it. Okay, so you've now given us a couple of lyrics, and before you alluded to the fact that you have some hip hop affirmations.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm extremely intrigued into what you mean by hip hop affirmations. Can you first define it for us, and then secondly, can you give us a few?
Sure. Well, hip hop affirmation is basically it's taking hip hop lyrics, and the whole gist of it is using it as something that can be empowering to you. We listen to music, and that's probably even a whole nother podcast on how that came to be. But we listen to music. There are lyrics that move us. There are lyrics that move me. And the way I know when a lyric moves me is I have a visceral reaction. I get goosebumps, and that's how I take it. I take a lyric, and then I create an original affirmation, because it's not enough to have the lyric. It's not enough to say, if you'll never be a factor if you're not an actor. Now, what are you going to do with that? So I may create an affirmation based on that lyric that says, I take action. So that's what makes it a hip hop affirmation. The affirmation is original from me. The lyric is borrowed from from an artist.
That makes a ton of sense. That makes a ton of sense. So when it comes to listening to music, when it comes to, gosh, feeding ourselves and really kind of guarding our gates, what are some things that you personally do to continue to keep yourself full, if you will, of positivity?
There is, and I'm going to repeat the question just to make sure I have it, because it sounds like there may be a couple of things. There's one is, how do you get yourself? And then another one is, what do you do in order to keep yourself full with positive? It may be the same question. Well, for me, the way my day starts is with, taking something, reading from the Bible. So I use the Bible app on my iPhone, and I do a daily devotional, and that's how I kind of get stuff going. As far as kind of protecting and positivity, some of it is, what's the word I'm looking for? Maybe subjective is the word I'm looking for, or it's relative, because I'm a guy who's originally from Brooklyn, New York. The things that may inspire me based on my environment, or may motivate me based on my environment, may not work in corporate America. So the gate for me is, how do you translate it for yourself instead of gate? Because everyone's going to have a different understanding of it. I have friends who are very into music, some into hip hop, but they have like the music background. And when we have conversations, it's very interesting because they can talk about what they're hearing in terms of the beat. Did you hear that? Did you hear that? This came in? And I'm like, no. But when they're talking about the lyrics, I can give my perspective as someone who grew up with hip hop. So for me, it's really about what can you pull from it that is going to help you move forward. And that's what I created with my book, Move the Crowd, 30 Days of Hip Hop Affirmations to Change Your Life, as well as my blog, which is hiphopaffirmations.com. There you'll find over 365 lyrics and affirmations that I've created.
So let's quickly touch on your book. And when it comes to creating a book around affirmations, what kept you motivated to do that?
Well, the words themselves is one. Two is the way that I do it is, you have the lyrics, you have the affirmation, and then you have a little vignette. You have a little story with action to take. And the stories really are my stories. They're stories that tie to me. So there's part of getting the word out there, and that's motivation. There's part, there's a younger me who's out there who's looking for guidance and who is interested in this music, but they don't know how it ties into, their life and kind of how they can make power moves based on what they're listening to. So that was motivation for me. I had great people in my corner, people who've written books before, who served as editors, and all those things that really kept me going. I had a structure in place. I write, they review. So I had this system in place that kept me going.
Perfect. And I think this is an amazing opportunity for the two of us, and that's if you'll join me, to jump into the time machine and go back in time.
All right.
And the question that I would like to ask you, what advice would you give to a younger you?
There's a little bit about, depends what age, but in general, because I think a lot about almost work and career is kick ass no matter where you are and keep score. Keep score. Those are the two things I would say. Kick ass no matter where you are and keep score.
If it's not measured, it doesn't matter. So keep score. I love that. I love that. Now, we're still in this time machine. And as you can tell, you still have the same knowledge that you have. But now you have no business, no contacts, and $500 in your pocket. How would you start your business?
Mm. That is a good question. If I had $500, I would go to a conference. That's how I work. When I feel stuck, there's two things that I've learned. One from like an actual physical mentor. I have very few of them, actual physical mentors. One is build a list. And when I mean build a list, I mean actually write a list. 100 companies or 100 people you want to connect with and start getting busy. Have a 3-part series letter that you're going to send out. And then the other one is just, for me as an extrovert, is I got to get out and connect with people. So that's what I would do. I would go to a conference and there I would build up X amount of people. I would ask how I could help the conference, those type of things. So then I start to become almost like a mini celebrity. I become part of that, environment. So that's where I would start.
Perfect. So, Mike, this has been amazing, but I know that we are getting low on time, but I did have an audience question and I want to ask it really quickly. And the audience question is, why do you believe there is doubt with people of color?
Great question. And I've had a couple of things that has happened to me, and some even after I started No More Reasonable Doubt, where the way I operate pretty much is around my pain. It's around my personal pain, right? That causes me to say, I want to see if I can change something in the world. Maybe I'll check if some other people have it, so I'm not crazy. Yeah. But that's where it starts. And I think part of it is I take doubt. You may hear about imposter syndrome, but about, hey, for me was the belief that I can only go as far as I have seen. I can only go as far as I've seen, which means I've been building on my history and not on my imagination. The feeling of freedom, not, oh, wait a minute, I don't know anyone who's done that. Wait a minute. Or if someone's saying something at work and it's like, well, are they right? Maybe they're right. Because I've had situations at work that weren't pretty. And that had me having those questions. So I think it's a question of what you've been exposed to. That's where I think the doubt comes in. The doubt, I won't necessarily say media, but you can, when you think about what you're being fed, good or bad, but there's a way things are being painted. And I don't think it's the whole picture. I don't think we get the picture of, hey, who's in charge of media, those type of things, and who's trying to get you sold on what. So I think when you're trying to step out of a stereotype, there's doubt. I'm not used to seeing this. I'm not used to seeing that. I don't usually see people act that way. That's where I think it comes from. And it comes from honest reflection upon where you're trying to go and what are the things that are getting in your way. That's what I've run into personally.
So I want to quickly add that your feet will never go where your mind has never been, right? So you've got to get yourself out of this mental incarceration, so to speak. And great ways to do that are one of the things that you just said, Mike, with reflection. Reading is another great way, right? Interacting is another great way, right? Mike, you again touched on that with the $500. You said I would go to a conference, right? I would have an opportunity to interact with other people. The more and more that you interact with other people, the more and more you have an opportunity to hear about their experiences. And those experiences then do what? Expose you to different ways of thinking, to different different ways of thinking and different ways to, of course, do things. So before we wrap up, Mike, I want to give you an opportunity to tell the leaders out there what you are currently passionate about right now and how they can get in contact with you.
Well, I'm currently passionate about No More Reasonable Doubt, and just the thought of helping young professionals who may feel a little bit stuck in their careers and thinking, man, what do I do now? This environment is different. I'm not surrounded with people who look like me. I may be the first one in my family or my community to be taking these steps. And I want them to know that there's support. There are people out there who can help them. So nomorereasonabledoubt.com. You'll find the podcast there. You'll find the movement there. And you can get in touch with me. A lot of times, Facebook's a great way, but everywhere that you look up Ambassador Bruny, Bruny, you'll find me. LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, all those social media spaces, you can connect with me there.
Perfect, perfect, perfect. So before you leave,
Yes.
Mike, can you please share with us one parting piece of advice for the leaders of tomorrow?
This is one that I usually go to. Oh, you know what? And it's going to be lyric based.
I can't wait.
I'm gonna give you the usual one, and I'm gonna give you what's on my heart right now. The usual one is
we get two.
You get two. Hopefully that's okay.
Yes.
And it's no compass comes with this life, just eyes. So to map it out, you must look inside. Sure, books can guide you, but your heart defines you. So that's by Jay-Z. And what's been on my heart as of late that's been on replay is by Drake, 0 to 100. And it's know yourself, know your worth. That's all. Know yourself, know your worth.
Know yourself, know your worth. And there is no compass to this life. There is no compass to this life, but your heart can guide you in so many different ways, so many different areas. And don't be afraid to allow your heart to guide you, right? Listen to those instincts, listen to your gut, rationalize some things too, right? We're not telling you not to use caution here, but don't be afraid to listen to that deep, still voice that's inside that's telling you, hey, go do it. Go do it. Go act. Be an actor. And as Mike was saying earlier.
Depending on your audience, right? I know you have a diverse audience. That voice is not just, it's not just your own.
Yeah.
People have different names for it. Maybe Holy Spirit, it may be some other stuff, but know that you're not alone in this in a number of different ways. You're not alone in this.
Here we go. There we go. So leaders, head on over to leadersinspireleaders.com for the show notes and Mike's contact information. And remember, the highest form of leadership is inspiring other leaders. So be inspiring and stay inspired. Mike, thank you so much for joining me and inspiring the leaders of tomorrow.
My utmost pleasure. Thank you, Coy.